Hi, and welcome to February's Northern BC News for real estate investors. We're just back from another trip with investors to Fort St. John and Dawson Creek. It was very fun, very busy. It was very cold, about minus 30 out while we were there. They actually had a huge bonfire. I'll show you a picture of it here that was surrounded by walls of ice. You know, you'd only see something like that when it's minus 30 in a town like Fort St. John. So we had a very good time. Those that were lucky enough to be there with us were able to hear from a variety of great speakers. One of those great speakers was Trevor Boland, who owns the local Remax office. Actually, they were the #1 Remax office in Western Canada here for the last while. And then #2, he's actually also a city councillor for Fort St. John. And we're very fortunate to have Trevor that's going to be here with us in Vancouver here on the 21st. So if anybody would like to come out and hear him speak at our launch event for our new project in Fort St. John, the details for that are in the description below or in the email that I sent you. So click on that and would love to see you there. So it's been a very busy time up north. The numbers have come out for the population numbers for all of BC. In fact, BC averaged about a 1.1% population growth for 2014. Of course, the Peace region is growing significantly faster than that. In fact, it's the fastest growing region in all of BC, with Fort St. John growing at 4.7% and Dawson Creek was last year growing at 2.9%. The other very nice part about that is actually they believe that the numbers are actually growing much faster than this, because these are just the people that they can actually count here. A lot of people fly in and they fly out, and they're not part of these numbers. One of the ways they actually measure those people is by measuring the amount of water consumption that are in the city. So Dawson Creek and Fort St. John both believe that the population numbers are significantly higher than they've even posted here. So that's great news, because those people need places to live, and that's what we're doing for them. So there's a lot going on up north. There's a lot of different businesses that are sustaining the real estate market there. Of course, one of the big growth areas moving forward is going to be LNG. There's been a lot of news surrounding LNG over the past years, and that certainly has been the case here over the past month. Now, I'd just like to remind you guys why LNG is a big deal for Northeast BC. Because oftentimes LNG is always associated with Kitimat and Prince Rupert, and I had an investor ask me this week why that impacts Northeast BC. The reason that is because for each liquefied natural gas plant that you have on the coast, they need natural gas that feeds into that plant to be able to liquefy it. And that natural gas follows pipelines all the way back to Northeast BC. So any LNG plant that moves forward in this province will have a massive impact on Northeast BC and the natural gas drilling that's required to feed these LNG plants on the coast. And there's been a number of good announcements, actually excellent announcements here this month. #1 is the government's come out with new regulations giving the province more power in overseeing the development of liquefied natural gas projects. This is a big deal because it's one more piece of uncertainty that's been removed for the big decision makers here for LNG plants, and each time you remove that uncertainty, you're one step closer to a final investment decision. Also, with all this talk of lowering oil prices, it's very encouraging to see another proposed LNG plant on BC's coast from New Times Energy. Now, again, like I say, it's very encouraging. What I always have to remind a lot of people, though, is now we have about 19 plants proposed here for BC, and of course, not all of them are going to go through. And you're going to see a lot of headlines talking about LNG. You know, maybe only this many plants are going to go through, only that many plants are going to go through. I read an article this week that it was written in a negative tone, but it says they think only 2 major LNG plants are going to go through. And what people need to realize is how much investment and how many jobs will be created if even 2 go through here. So don't get scared away by some of those negative headlines here. I believe we're going to see some very positive news here coming out even in the next few months here. One of those big pieces of news this month was actually the signing of the First Nations group. It is the Morristown Indian Band has signed agreements on 2 different pipelines. The Coastal GasLink pipeline and the Pacific Trails pipeline. They feed the Shell LNG plant and the proposed Chevron Woodside LNG plant. And this is a huge deal because this is the final Indian band that needed to sign on to these deals.
so that now all approvals from Indian bands have been received here. So this is a massive win for the industry at being able to put these pipelines through. A big part of the reason these pipelines haven't faced as much opposition is because if there's a leak, the gas dissipates into the air. It doesn't have the same catastrophic effects that an oil leak would have, where it seeps into the ground and into the rivers. So again, fantastic news.
Two final pieces of news here. Number one, AltaGas is moving forward on a project that was formerly known as the Douglas Channel LNG Partnership. They've taken the reins of this deal, and they plan on making a final investment decision for it by the end of this year, by the end of 2015. It's nice because these smaller scale projects don't require quite the amount of money as the bigger projects, so they don't quite take as much time to make that final investment decision. The second very interesting piece of news this month, actually, it started from the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper in Australia, talking about one of their LNG plants in Australia that Shell was now planning on not proceeding with. And if you look down in the article here, buried in that article, it says the reason why Shell was not going to build that LNG plant. They said that they had other LNG plant opportunities elsewhere in the world, and they specifically mentioned the LNG plant in Canada that they were wanting to focus on. The reason they're wanting to focus on it is because it's such an excellent gas play in the Northeast. So this would be an article that if you weren't really looking closely, you might have actually missed here. So check that out. There's a lot of great things happening here. Again, if you would like to come hear Trevor on Saturday, come out and join us and have a look at our newest projects, the Hudson Townhomes and Condos in Fort St. John. If there's anything I can do to help, as always, please let me know, and I look forward to talking with you next month. Cheers.